The moment the slap landed, I covered my face but smiled. My fiancé, KGU, had publicly called off our engagement for the factory director's daughter, calling me an ungrateful waste of money. The sympathy and mockery from the guests pierced me like needles. I wiped away my tears, my gaze sweeping past his smug face to land squarely on the man in military uniform behind him, his epaulets gleaming with gold. He leaned against the doorframe like an unsheathed sword, coldly observing the farce. Pushing through the crowd, I stepped up to him, my burning palm clutching the hem of his uniform. "Comrade, are you in need of a wife? The Civil Affairs Bureau will close soon if we're late. Junlin, have you had enough of this nonsense?" KGU's voice was sharp and grating, like a rusty knife scraping against my eardrums. I ignored him, all my attention focused on the man in front of me. He was tall, I had to tilt my head back to see his face clearly. Beneath the military green brim of his cap were eyes as deep and unfathomable as a cold pool, calm yet scrutinizing. His lips were pressed into a resolute line, and his entire demeanor exuded an icy aloofness that warned others to keep their distance. "Comrade, my name is Junlin. I'm a nurse at the textile factory, 21 years old, in good health, and with no bad habits. My fiancé, that one over there." I tilted my chin slightly in KGU's direction, my voice trembling faintly without my realizing it. "He's taken up with the factory director's daughter. Today's meal is basically our breakup dinner. If you're also single, why don't we make do and team up to get by together?" My words exploded like a thunderclap, instantly silencing the bustling hall of the state-run restaurant. Everyone looked at me as if I were a madwoman. KGU's face turned beet red. He rushed over to pull me away but faltered under the officer's icy gaze. "Junlin, have you lost your mind? To get back at me, you'd just marry any random man. Do you even know who he is?" Who he is doesn't matter. I cut him off, my eyes still fixed on the man before me. "What matters is that he's an option right now. Comrade, I don't need a dowry. The sewing machine and radio from my family are mine to bring. Just say the word, and we'll go register our marriage right now." Time seemed to freeze in that moment. The man's gaze lingered on my face for a few seconds, so sharp it felt like it could pierce through my feigned strength. Seeing all the humiliation and resentment buried deep in my heart, I thought he would reject me as if I were a joke. After all, it was utterly absurd. Yet, he slowly straightened his posture, his tall and upright figure resembling a pine tree on a snow-capped mountain. His deep voice resonated with a metallic timbre. "My name is Gray Lu. The unit is short of a family member." My heart skipped a beat. Did he just agree? Gray Lu didn't say another word. Turning around and walking straight out, I froze for a moment before immediately lifting my skirt and chasing after him, not even glancing back at KGU. Stepping out of the restaurant, the afternoon sunlight of the 1980s was a bit glaring. The streets were filled with the crisp ringing of 28-inch bar bicycles and the distant sound of "On the Field of Hope" playing from the loudspeakers of the Supply and Marketing Cooperative. Gray Lu's long legs moved swiftly, and I almost had to jog to keep up. "Lu, Comrade Lu," I panted slightly. "Where are we going?" "Civil Affairs Bureau," he said succinctly without pausing his steps. "You mentioned getting a marriage certificate. Let's go before they close." His straightforwardness left me momentarily stunned. I thought he was just helping me out of an awkward situation, never expecting him to be serious. Watching his broad back, my heart was a whirlwind of emotions. This man named Gray Lu was like a mystery that had fallen from the sky, crashing into my already chaotic life. The Civil Affairs Bureau wasn't crowded. The clerk, a bespectacled woman in her 40s, greeted us warmly, especially upon seeing Gray Lu in his crisp military uniform. "Here for your marriage certificate." "Yes." Gray Lu pulled out his military ID and letter of introduction from his pocket and slid them over. The receptionist glanced at his documents, then at me, a flicker of surprise flashing in her eyes before quickly regaining her professionalism. "Please fill out this application form, both of you." I gripped the pen, my palm slick with sweat. At the relationship to applicant section, I hesitated. What were we, strangers thrown together by chance? A large, well-defined hand reached over and took the pen from my grasp. Gray Lu bent down and, with swift, decisive strokes, filled in the blank space in my section with two characters, husband and wife. His fingertips brushed the back of my hand, carrying a slight roughness from thin calluses and a faint scent of tobacco. My face instantly flushed red. Stepping out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, I clutched that glaringly red marriage certificate in my hand, feeling as though everything was a dream. Just like that, less than an hour after being jilted, I had married a man whose name was all I knew. Comrade Grey Lou. I cleared my throat, trying to keep my voice steady. Thank you for helping me today. He turned his head to look at me, the fading sunlight casting a soft glow over his sharp features. There was a faint scar on his left brow, almost imperceptible unless you looked closely, yet it added a touch of mystery to his entire demeanor. No need to call me comrade, he said. Just call me by my name, Grey Lou, I whispered softly. He responded with a faint hum. So, what are your plans next? I asked cautiously. After all, we're legally married now. It wouldn't make sense to just go our separate ways after getting the certificate. I'll rejoin the unit in a couple of days. You can come with the army. He looked ahead, his tone as casual as if he were commenting on the weather. With the army, I froze. I had never imagined leaving the county town where I'd grown up for a completely unfamiliar place, let alone the military. But my job, it can be transferred. Nurses like you are welcome everywhere. He said it lightly, as if nothing were a problem. I looked at him and suddenly found it somewhat ridiculous. KGU had been with me for 3 years, yet his plans for my future were always along the lines of, "You're just a woman, so focus on doing your job well and staying out of trouble." But this Grey Lou, whom I'd known for less than 2 hours, had already mapped out a safety net for me. After a moment of silence, he suddenly spoke up. "Earlier, why did you choose me?" I knew he was referring to that absurd proposal in the restaurant. I pursed my lips and answered honestly, "Because you seemed the least approachable, at least. That was far better than someone like KGU, all bark and no bite. A mere showpiece." He seemed to smile, the corner of his mouth lifting so quickly that I thought it was my imagination. Good taste. Was that a compliment? Before I could ponder further, a voice came from behind us. "June Lin." I turned around and saw KGU running towards us with my mother, both looking furious. "June Lin, you wretched girl, how dare you make such a big decision about marriage on your own?" My mother rushed up to me and raised her hand to hit me. The slap never landed. Grey Lou had somehow stepped in front of me, shielding me completely with his tall frame. My mother's hand struck his arm with a dull thud. "Who are you? Get out of my way." My mother planted her hands on her hips and glared at Grey Lou. Grey Lou didn't move, not even a frown crossing his face. He simply spoke calmly. "Auntie, I'm June Lin's husband." "Grey Lou, husband?" My mother froze, then burst out as if she'd heard the biggest joke of all time. "Don't let this dead girl fool you. She just broke up with our KGU today. How could she possibly be with you already?" "We just got our marriage certificate," Grey Lou said, pulling out that red marriage certificate from his pocket and waving it briefly in front of my mother and KGU. That marriage certificate was like a bucket of cold water, instantly dousing all of my mother's fury. She stared at it dumbfounded, her mouth hanging open wide enough to fit an egg. KGU's face turned a spectacle of colors, alternating between green and white. He glared fiercely at Grey Lou, his eyes brimming with jealousy and resentment. "June Lin, you'd go to any lengths just to spite me. Do you even know him? Do you know what kind of person he is? How dare you marry him, whether I know him or not? What does it have to do with you, Comrade GU?" I peeked out from behind Grey Lou and retorted coldly, "When you were getting cozy with Fei Wang in the Grove, why didn't you think about whether I knew you or not?" This was something I witnessed firsthand yesterday when I went to deliver lunch to KGU. He was embracing the factory director's daughter, Fei Wang, calling me a dull block of wood and saying he only wanted to marry me for my parents' pension. At the time, I was so furious I trembled all over and left immediately. Never did I expect he would dare to call off the engagement right at the betrothal banquet today. KGU's face flushed instantly. You're talking nonsense." "Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know it in your heart." I couldn't be bothered to argue with him anymore and tugged at Grey Lou's sleeve. "Let's go home." "Home?" My mother finally snapped out of her daze and grabbed me. "Which home are you going back to? You're not going anywhere until you explain yourself today. Who is this man? What does he do? How many people are in his family? What's his monthly salary? Did you even ask these questions before daring to marry him? This barrage of questions left me speechless, because I couldn't answer a single one of them. I could only look at Grey Lou for help. Grey Lou's expression remained unchanged as he calmly answered my mother's questions. I work in the military, my parents are no longer around, and I have a younger sister. My salary is enough to support her. He pointed at me. My mother was momentarily taken aback by his composed demeanor but persisted. The military, what rank do you hold? Soldiers have to endure hardships. Our June has never suffered a day in her life. Mom, I couldn't take it anymore. If you keep this up, I won't come back again. My mother was stunned by my outburst. I've always been a well-behaved girl since childhood, and this was the first time I had spoken to her in such a firm tone. You unfilial daughter. My mother was so angry that tears streamed down her face. Seeing her like this, my heart ached too, but I knew I couldn't back down today. If I retreated now, I would never be able to hold my head high in this family again. Grey Lou seemed to sense my distress. He stepped forward, his tone still calm but carrying an undeniable authority. Auntie, June Lin is now my wife, a military family member. From now on, any grievances she suffers will be my responsibility. It's getting late today, so we'll head back first. Another day, I'll come by formally to visit. After speaking, he grabbed my wrist and turned to leave. Leaving my mom and KGU standing there dumbfounded, his palm was broad and warm, enveloping my wrist with a comforting strength. I let him lead me through the crowd, past the curious or disdainful gazes. We walked for a while until we could no longer hear my mom's cries, and only then did Grey Lou stop. Where do you live? He asked. I gave him the address. It was the staff housing allocated by our factory. The whole way, neither of us spoke. The atmosphere was somewhat awkward. I stole glances at him. He kept his eyes fixed straight ahead, his jawline tense, as if lost in thought. When we reached the housing complex, I stopped and said, I'm here, millimeter. He nodded, releasing my hand. Go on up, aren't you coming up for a while? I blurted out without thinking. Immediately, I regretted it. We had just gotten our marriage certificate. Bringing him home would surely drive my parents crazy. No, he refused bluntly. I'll stay at the guest house. Here's the address. Pack your things tomorrow and come find me directly. We'll take the train early the morning after. He handed me a slip of paper with the name of the county's only guest house and a room number written on it. I took the note, clutching it in my palm. So soon? There's a time limit on military leave passes, he explained. I nodded in understanding. Then, see you tomorrow. He turned and walked away, his silhouette stretching long in the setting sun, inexplicably desolate. I watched him disappear at the end of the alley before turning to head upstairs. Just as I opened the front door, a teacup flew past my ear, shattering against the wall with a loud crash. You still remember to come home? My father sat on the sofa, his face livid. My mother was wiping tears beside him. I knew a family storm was waiting for me. I took a deep breath, closed the door, and spoke calmly. Dad, Mom, I'm married. My father trembled with anger, pointing at me. Unable to speak for a long time, it was my mother who spoke first, sobbing. June, how could you be so foolish? No matter how bad KGU is, at least we know his background. That man you brought home today, what's his name? Grey Lou. We don't even know who he is. How could you dare know his background? I sneered. Knowing his background means he played me for a fool for his own future and humiliated me by calling off the wedding in front of the entire county. Mom, I can't bear that shame. But you can't just marry anyone on a whim. My father finally found his voice and slammed the table. Go get a divorce immediately. Our Lin family's reputation can't be ruined like this by you. I won't leave. My tone was unusually resolute. We've already registered our marriage. We're legally husband and wife. Dad, Mom, I'm not discussing this with you. I'm informing you. The day after tomorrow, I'm leaving with him to join the military. How dare you? My father stood up in anger. What wouldn't I dare? I'm giving up my job, and I'm giving up you too. I'll go somewhere no one knows me and start over. As I spoke these words, my heart felt as if it were being sliced by a knife. Yet my expression remained eerily calm. I knew this was the only way. In their eyes, marrying KGU was my rightful path. Being abandoned by KGU was an unbearable humiliation, and choosing Grey Lou was self-degradation. I couldn't explain it clearly, nor did I want to. The room fell into a deathly silence. My father was so angry his chest heaved violently, while my mother's sobs gradually quieted down. After a long while, my father slumped back onto the sofa and waved his hand weakly. Forget it, forget it. A grown daughter cannot be kept at home forever. Do whatever you want. Just don't come crying back to us when you suffer outside. His words stabbed at my heart like a knife. I knew he spoke in anger, but it still hurt deeply. That night, I locked myself in my room and didn't sleep a wink. I packed all my belongings, though there wasn't much, a few changes of clothes, some textbooks, and the Butterfly brand sewing machine my mother had given me as part of her dowry. Early the next morning, my parents hadn't gotten up yet. I knew they didn't want to see me. I placed the house key on the table, silently kowtowed to my mother, then dragged my small suitcase behind me and left without looking back, the home I had lived in for 21 years. I didn't cry. From the moment KGU called off the wedding yesterday, it felt like all my tears had dried up. I found the hostel Grey Lou had mentioned. The receptionist gave me a strange look, probably thinking I was some kind of disreputable woman. I knocked on Grey Lou's door. He was the one who opened the door. He had already changed out of his military uniform and was wearing a white Dacron shirt and a pair of blue work pants, looking less like a sharp soldier and more like a gentle man at home. There were still water droplets in his hair, suggesting he had just washed up. "You're here." He stepped aside to let me in. The room was small, with only a bed and a desk. My suitcase and sewing machine seemed particularly out of place. Have you had breakfast yet?" I asked, grasping for something to say. "Not yet, waiting for you," he said, picking up 2 still warm meat buns from the table and handing them to me. "Have these to tide you over." I took the buns and ate them in small bites. He grabbed one for himself and finished it in just a few mouthfuls. After finishing the buns, the atmosphere once again fell into an awkward silence. "Did your family give you any trouble?" he suddenly asked. I shook my head. Everything's been settled. I didn't want him to know about my family situation. Nor did I want him to think I was an unwanted burden. He gave me a deep look, his eyes seeming to see right through everything. He didn't press further, simply saying, "What are your plans for today?" "I want to go to the department store to buy some things, since I'm following the army to the base, where I know neither the place nor the people. I should at least prepare some daily necessities." "I'll go with you." "No need, I can manage on my own," I quickly declined. We weren't that familiar yet, and having him accompany me shopping would be too awkward. "I'm your man," he said, looking at me word by word. "Accompanying my wife shopping is only natural." His words, "I'm your man," made my heart skip a beat, and my face flushed uncontrollably again. I lowered my head and softly murmured, The county's department store was the most fashionable place in the entire area. As we walked in, we drew quite a few glances. Mainly because Grey Lou was too eye-catching. He was tall, handsome, and had a unique presence that stood out in the crowd like a crane among chickens. I feel like I'm just a side character. Just as I was engrossed in picking out face cream, a snide voice rang out. "Well, if it isn't June Lin, what's the matter?" Already latched onto a new man so quickly, I turned around and saw Fei Wang, who was holding onto Cade Gu's arm, looking at me with a smug expression. A few other women stood beside her, all from our factory and usually close with Fei Wang. KGU saw Grey Lou beside me, his face darkened, but he still forced himself to say, "June Lin, I never expected you to be so shameless. Just yesterday, you..." Before he could finish his words, Grey Lou interrupted him. Grey Lou stepped forward, shielding me behind him, his gaze like icy daggers piercing into KGU. "Watch your mouth." His presence was overwhelming, and KGU instinctively took a step back. Fei Wang wasn't afraid. Accustomed to throwing her weight around as the factory director's daughter, she arrogantly retorted, "Who do you think you are? How dare you interfere in our business? June Lin, your taste in men is truly awful, each one cruder than the last. Comrade, you probably don't know, but she's just a cast-off shoe dumped by KGU. Slap, a sharp slap rang out, everyone froze in shock. It wasn't Grey Lou who struck, nor was it me, it's KGU. He actually slapped Fei Wang across the face. Fei Wang covered her face, staring at KGU in disbelief. You hit me. KGU ignored her, his eyes fixed on Grey Lou's shoulder, filled with terror and incredulity. Just now, when Grey Lou stepped forward, the collar of his shirt had slightly opened, revealing a glimpse of the military uniform underneath and the rank insignia on the shoulder. Though it was just a fleeting moment, KGU saw it clearly. That was 2 bars and 1 star, a major, in this small county town. Even a regimental commander is only at this level. KGU broke out in a cold sweat instantly. He finally understood what kind of existence he had provoked. He no longer dared to look at Grey Lou, just pulling Fei Wang along as he slunk away in disgrace. The onlookers around them also dispersed. I stared blankly at Grey Lou, my mind in turmoil. I had always thought he was just an ordinary officer, but never expected. Scared, Grey Lou turned his head to look at me, his voice carrying a hint of tenderness that was hard to detect. I shook my head, then nodded. He suddenly smiled, and the scar above his brow softened along with it. Raising his hand, he gently wiped away a tear from the corner of my eye with his calloused fingertips. From now on, you have me. No one dares to bully you. The train to the military camp was green, the carriage crowded and noisy, filled with the mingled scents of sweat, instant noodles, and various dialects. Grey Lou and I sat by the window, my sewing machine and leather trunk taking up quite a bit of space, drawing many disapproving glances from the neighboring passengers. Grey Lou, however, didn't seem to mind at all. He arranged our luggage neatly and then pulled out a book. Reading quietly, I stole a glance. It was a book on military strategy, filled with maps and symbols I couldn't understand. The train clattered on, a journey that would take 2 days and 1 night. At first, I was still fresh with excitement, pressing against the window to watch the scenery outside, but soon, the fatigue of the journey washed over me. Leaning back in my seat, I grew drowsy. In my daze, I felt my head drop heavily onto something solid and warm. It was Grey Lou's shoulder. I jolted awake, trying to sit up straight, but he held me in place. Sleep. His voice was low, right by my ear. There's still a long way to go. His voice seemed magical, instantly easing my tense nerves. I shyly curled in a little but still couldn't bring myself to leave the shoulder that made me feel so safe. This was the first time I'd had such close contact with a man other than my father. He carried a pleasant scent of soap mixed with a faint trace of tobacco, making me feel completely at ease. I could even hear his steady, strong heartbeat thump, thump, thump like a lullaby. I really fell asleep. When I woke up again, it was already dark. The dim yellow lights were on in the carriage. I found myself covered with an armor green coat, while Grey Lou, wearing only a thin shirt, was resting with his eyes closed. A warmth filled my heart as I carefully returned the coat to him. He opened his eyes, with no trace of sleepiness in them. Awake, are you hungry? I nodded. He pulled a greased paper package out of his canvas bag as if by magic. Unwrapping it revealed a roasted chicken. In the food-scarce 1980s, this was a rare delicacy. Where did you get this? I asked in surprise. Bought it before boarding, he said, tearing off a drumstick and handing it to me. Eat it quickly. I looked at the chicken leg in his hand, then at the envious glances of the passengers around us, and hesitated. You eat it, I'm not hungry. Just eat it when I tell you to. Stop with the nonsense. He shoved the chicken leg into my hand, his tone leaving no room for refusal. I had no choice but to take it and began eating in small bites. The chicken was crispy on the outside and tender inside, its aroma irresistible. As I ate, I stole glances at him. He was eating too, but with a refined manner, nothing like the image I had of soldiers devouring meat in big mouthfuls. After finishing the roast chicken, both our hands were greasy. He took out his handkerchief, carefully wiped my hands clean first, and only then attended to his own. His movements were so natural, as if we had been an old married couple for many years. The train finally arrived at its destination on the morning of the 3rd day. It was a small station I had never heard of before. As I stepped off the train, a wave of dry, cold air hit my face. Looking around, all I could see were bare Lurs highlands. desolate to the point of being slightly frightening. A military jeep was parked outside the station. A young soldier in uniform spotted Grey Lou and immediately ran over, saluting crisply. "Battalion Commander Lou." Grey Lou nodded and handed the luggage to him. "Take your sister-in-law and the things back." "Yes, sir," the young soldier replied loudly, then glanced at me curiously with a grin. "Hello, sister-in-law." His address made my face flush, and I softly responded with a hello. "Grey didn't get in the car," he said to me. "I still have some business to attend to. Let the guard take you back first to settle in. I've already cleaned the house. If you need anything, just let him know." I nodded and said, "Go ahead with your work." The jeep jolted along the bumpy dirt road for nearly half an hour before we saw a row of neat barracks. The vehicle stopped in front of a line of single-story red brick houses. The young soldier helped me carry the sewing machine and leather trunk into the house, then said, "Sister-in-law, this will be your and the battalion commander's home. I'm at the guard post just ahead. Call me anytime if you need anything." Only after seeing off the young soldier did I get the chance to take a proper look at our home. The house isn't large, just one bedroom and a living room, with cement floors and white lime walls. The furniture inside is simple: a wooden plank bed, a table, 2 chairs, and a peeling wardrobe. Though modest, it's spotlessly clean, without a speck of dust. On the table sits a brand new thermos and a tea set, while the bedding on the bed is also new, neatly folded into a perfect square. It's clear that Grey Lou put thought into this. I unpacked my belongings, changed the bedsheet I brought from home, and wiped the windows. By the time I finished all this, it was almost dark. Grey Lou hasn't returned yet. I'm a bit hungry, but there's no cafeteria here, and I don't know where to find food. Just as I was starving to the point of my chest touching my back, the door was pushed open. Grey Lou came back. He was holding a string bag containing noodles, a few eggs, and a bunch of greens. Hungry, he placed the items on the table. "I'll cook. You can cook." I was somewhat surprised. "A little," he said, rolling up his sleeves with practiced ease before stepping into the tiny kitchen that could barely fit one person. Soon, the sounds of chopping vegetables and boiling water came from the kitchen. Standing at the doorway, I watched his tall figure moving busily in the cramped space, feeling a peculiar sensation in my heart. The man who stood by me at the department store yesterday to intimidate a scumbag is now, amidst the hustle and bustle of life, cooking a simple meal for me. It was just a bowl of the simplest noodles with eggs and greens, but it was the most delicious meal I've had in days. After the meal, he cleared the dishes. I insisted on washing them, but he wouldn't let me. "I'll do it, you just got here. Take a rest first." By the time he finished washing the dishes, it was already completely dark outside. The room was lit only by a dim, yellowish bulb. A serious problem now lay before us. There was only one bed in the house. The air in the room seemed to freeze. That 1.5-meter-wide wooden bed now appeared to me like an unfathomable ocean, brimming with unknown dangers. My hands were so nervous I didn't know where to put them, so I could only lower my head and pretend to study the cement seams on the floor. Grey Lou seemed to notice my awkwardness too. He cleared his throat and broke the silence first. "You take the bed, I'll sleep on the floor." As he spoke, he moved to pick up the brand new bedding. "Don't," I quickly stopped him. "It's cold now, and the floor is chilly. You'll get sick. Let's just share the bed." When I uttered those last few words, my voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz. My face was burning hot enough to fry an egg. Although we were legally married, this was just too fast. Grey Lou paused mid-motion. He turned his head, and under the dim yellow light, I couldn't make out his expression clearly. All I could see was the starlight shimmering in his deep, dark eyes. "Aren't you afraid?" he asked. I bit my lip, mustered my courage, and looked up at him. "We're husband and wife. Yes, we are married. This is the path I've chosen, and I will walk it. And for some reason, even though I haven't known him for long, I trust his character. A man who would stand up for a stranger in front of a crowd, a man who would quietly remember her words and arrange everything perfectly. He can't be a bad person." Grey Lou gave me a deep look but said nothing more. He took out another quilt from the wardrobe, 1 quilt each. "Let's sleep." I breathed a sigh of relief and quickly climbed into bed, wrapping myself tightly in the quilt, leaving only my eyes exposed. Grey Lou turned off the light, and the room was instantly plunged into darkness. I could feel him lying down beside me, the bed emitting a faint creak. There was a fist's distance between us, and I could even sense the warmth radiating from his body. His breathing was light and steady, but I knew. Just like me, he wasn't asleep either. In the darkness, the senses become exceptionally sharp. I could clearly smell the pleasant soapy scent on him and hear the sound of the wind outside the window. June Lin, he suddenly spoke. My heart skipped a beat. Don't be afraid, he said. I won't touch you without your permission. His words were like a soothing pill, instantly putting me at ease. I turned over, facing away from him, and whispered, "Thank you, let's sleep." That night, I slept exceptionally soundly. The next day, I woke to the clear sound of a military bugle. When I opened my eyes, the space beside me was empty. Grey Lou's quilt was folded into a perfect square, like a block of dried tofu. I got up and found several steamed buns and a bowl of millet porridge on the table. Still steaming, a note was left beside them, written by Grey Lou. The handwriting was bold and strong, just like the man himself. "I'm off to training, breakfast is on the table. The medical team is at the eastern end of the family quarters. You can go report in and check your work assignments." My heart warmed. This man was always so thoughtful. After breakfast, I followed the instructions on the note and found the medical team. The captain was a female military doctor in her 40s, surnamed Wang, who was very kind. She looked at my nurse certificate and letter of introduction and was delighted. "Wonderful. We're short-handed right now, Nurse Lin. Your timing couldn't be better." Although life in the army was tough, the interpersonal relationships were relatively simple. My colleagues in the medical team were also very welcoming. I knew it was mostly out of respect for Grey Lou, the battalion commander's wife, who is also a professional nurse who would dare not show her some respect. I quickly adapted to life here. During the day, I worked at the medical team, and in the evening, I went home to cook for Grey Lou. Our days were simple yet warm. Grey Lou remained very busy, leaving early and returning late every day, but whenever he had time, he would spend it with me. He taught me to identify plants in the Gobi, shared amusing stories from his marches, and took me to the shooting range to watch the soldiers train. He wasn't much of a talker, but he always found ways to show his care through actions. The military wives in the family compound were initially full of curiosity about me. The parachuted-in battalion commander's wife, they would pull me aside, subtly probing for details on how Grey Lou and I had met. I simply told them it was a family introduction, and we fell in love at first sight. As time passed, seeing how devoted we were as a couple, they stopped asking further questions. Only Sister Zhong, who lived next door to us, would always make snide remarks in my presence, intentionally or not. Her husband was the deputy battalion commander and had always seen Grey Lou as a rival. That day, I was washing clothes in the yard when Sister Zhong came over again. "Xiao Lin, your battalion commander Lou treats you so well, but you know, men can't be judged just by appearances. Our old Li said that your battalion commander Lou's recent training exercise has offended the division commander. His future doesn't look too bright, I'm afraid." I paused in my washing and looked up at her. "Sister Zhong, Grey Lou's future is none of your or Deputy Battalion Commander Li's concern. You'd be better off focusing on your own family. I've heard Deputy Battalion Commander Li has been getting quite close to that new girl from the cultural troop lately." I made that up entirely, but I knew that to deal with gossipy women like Sister Zhong, you had to fight fire with fire. Aunt Zhong's face turned pale in an instant, pointing at me. She stammered you, for a long time but couldn't utter a complete sentence. In the end, she could only slink away in defeat. In the evening, when Grey Lou returned, I recounted the incident to him as a joke. After hearing it, he didn't laugh, he just looked at me deeply, his eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't decipher. "June Lin." He suddenly reached out and pulled me into his embrace. This was the first time he took the initiative to hug me. His embrace was warm and strong. I buried my face in his broad chest, listening to his steady heartbeat, feeling completely at peace. "If anyone bullies you again in the future, just tell me," he said. "My woman, I'll protect her myself." Days passed like the wind over the Gobi Desert, plain yet swift. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had already gone by since I married Grey Lou. During these 3 months, although we still slept under separate blankets, the distance between us gradually closed. He would remember the food I casually mentioned wanting to eat and bring it back for me the next time he went to town for a meeting. I, too, would leave a light on and keep a bowl of warm soup for him when he returned late from training. We were like 2 trees growing side by side, our roots quietly intertwining underground, our branches and leaves slowly drawing closer under the sunlight. The workload at the medical team wasn't heavy, but the gossip in the family quarters was endless. Ever since I fought magic with magic and stood up to Sister Zhong last time, she had quieted down considerably, though the resentment in her eyes whenever she looked at me remained unmistakable. One day, as I was organizing the pharmacy, Captain Wang of the medical team suddenly called me over, his expression unusually grave. "Xiao Lin, there's something I need to tell you, Sister Wang." "What's the matter?" Captain Wang sighed and handed me a letter. "This is for you." I took it and looked. The handwriting on the envelope was familiar. Cade Goose. My heart sank. How did he know I was here? "This letter was brought by Sister Zhong," Captain Wang explained. "She said she found it at the courtyard gate." "Xiao Lin, as for this letter, just take it for what it is after reading it. Don't take it too much to heart." I nodded. Holding the letter in my hand, feeling as if I were gripping a hot potato, back at home, I hesitated for a long time before finally opening the letter. On the paper was Cade Goo's familiar handwriting, but the content made me sick. "June, I was wrong. Please come back. I've found out everything, that Grey Lou is just a low-ranking soldier who's always stuck in some godforsaken desert. What kind of future does he have? How could a stinking soldier like him be worthy of you? I'm about to be promoted to deputy workshop director. Fei Wang's father promised me. Once I get the position, I'll break things off with her, and we can start over." Okay. At the end of the letter, there were all sorts of sweet nothings, reminiscing about every little moment of our past. Reading that letter, I felt nothing but disgust. "Deputy workshop director." I sneered, tore the letter to shreds, and tossed it into the trash. What does he think June Lin, some plaything that comes and goes at his beck and call? Fuming, I paced back and forth in the room. Just then, the door opened, and Grey Lou returned. Seeing my expression, he immediately frowned. "What's wrong? Who upset you?" I shook my head, not wanting to trouble him with such matters. But how keen he was! He spotted the shredded pieces of paper in the trash bin at a glance. He walked over, picked up a fragment, and saw the familiar handwriting on it. His expression darkened instantly. The atmosphere in the room was terrifyingly oppressive. I had never seen him like this before, his gaze as cold as ice, his entire being radiating a frightening hostility. "He wrote to you." I nodded. "What did he say?" His voice was deep, like the muffled thunder before a storm. I didn't want to hide it from him, so I told him the contents of the letter in detail. After hearing my words, the icy expression on his face seemed to grow even colder. Without a word, he turned and started to walk away. "Where are you going?" I grabbed his arm. "Go find him." He ground out the words through clenched teeth. "How are you going to find him? It's thousands of kilometers from our county." I panicked. "Grey Lou, calm down. It's not worth getting angry over someone like that." He stopped in his tracks, turned around, and fixed me with a dark, intense stare. "If he insults me, I can ignore it, but he shouldn't have dared to covet my woman." Those words, "my woman," ignited all the grievances and fury in my heart like a flame. I could no longer hold back, and tears fell from my eyes. Seeing me cry, he instantly panicked. The hostility that had filled him vanished without a trace, leaving only an awkward helplessness. He reached out, wanting to wipe my tears, but as if afraid of being too forward, his hand froze mid-air. "Don't cry." His voice was hoarse. "It's my fault. I shouldn't have lost my temper." I shook my head, crying as I spoke. "It's not your fault, it's me who's useless. I always cause you trouble. You're not trouble." He finally reached out, using his rough fingertips to gently wipe away my tears. His touch was light, tender, as if handling a rare treasure. "June Lin," he said, looking into my eyes earnestly. "You are the wife I rightfully married with my military honors and recommendation letters. You're the one I, Grey Lou, have decided to spend my life with. "No one can take you away from me." His words made me cry even harder, but this time, they were tears of gratitude. That night, he didn't mention sleeping on the floor again. We still each had our own blanket, but before falling asleep, he reached over and held my hand. His palm was warm, dry, and full of strength. I didn't pull away. I knew that from today onward, something was different. The next day, news about me receiving a letter from my ex-fiancé spread throughout the residential compound. The versions were bizarre. Some said I was planning to elope with a wild man, while others claimed Captain Lou was going to divorce me. The source of these rumors, needless to say, was undoubtedly Sister Zhong. I couldn't be bothered to respond, but what I didn't expect was that Grey Lou took action. He didn't go to argue with Sister Zhong, nor did he confront Deputy Battalion Commander Li. Instead, during a full battalion meeting, he publicly applied for a family housing unit in front of everyone. According to regulations, only battalion-level officers and above who have stable marital relationships and have served in the military for a long time are eligible to apply for apartments. His application undoubtedly declared to everyone, his marriage with me is unbreakable. Those rumors were self-defeating. Sister Zhong's face turned green with envy. The weather was exceptionally nice on the day we moved into the family housing. The new home was much more spacious and brighter than the previous single-story house. With 2 bedrooms, a living room, and even a separate kitchen and bathroom, Grey Lou kept the place neat and tidy, even making a small wooden shelf specifically for my collection of skincare bottles and jars. Looking at the freshly renovated home, my heart was filled with hope for the future. My relationship with Grey Lou also took a significant leap forward because of the recent letter incident. He stopped calling me June Lin and switched to just June. Although we still hadn't crossed the final boundary, the intimacy and between us grew stronger with each passing day. He began to share some stories from the military with me, like which soldier came first in training, or which squad got into trouble and was punished. He still didn't talk much, but through his plain narration, I could sense his passion and sense of responsibility for this career. He was like a silent introvert, keeping all his fiery emotions hidden behind reserved actions, and I, probably the loud and boisterous extrovert, always tried to fill the gaps between us with words. One evening, he was cleaning his service pistol, a Type 54, its body polished to a glossy black sheen. I sat beside him, helping him organize the medicines in the first aid kit. "In a few days, I'll be going on a mission," he suddenly said. My heart tightened. "Is it dangerous?" "Just a routine exercise," he replied casually. But I knew he was trying to comfort me. From his focused and solemn gaze, I could sense something unusual. "How long will you be gone?" "It's hard to say, maybe 10 days, or perhaps half a month." He put away the gun and looked up at me. "I leave the house to you, don't worry." I tried to keep my voice calm. "I'll take care of myself." He didn't say anything more, just reached out and tucked a stray lock of hair behind my ear. His fingertips were cold, carrying a metallic scent. But his touch was gentle. At that moment, I suddenly wanted to hug him. The moment this thought crossed my mind, I startled myself. Before I could act on it, a sudden commotion erupted outside. "Something's wrong. There's trouble. There's trouble at the shooting range." Grey Lou's expression changed instantly, and he sprang to his feet. Grabbing his hat as he rushed out, I quickly followed suit. The accident involved a new recruit who, during live grenade throwing training, was so nervous that he dropped the live grenade at his feet after pulling the pin. Everyone was frozen in shock. At that critical moment, Grey Lou dashed forward like a leopard, pushed the recruit aside, picked up the grenade, and threw it with all his might. Boom! With a loud explosion, the grenade detonated in a distant sandpit, sending a cloud of dust into the air. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The new recruit collapsed on the ground, too terrified to speak. Grey Lou walked over, patted him on the shoulder, and without saying a word, turned to leave. "Battalion commander," a sharp-eyed soldier suddenly shouted, "You're injured." I just noticed that Grey Lou had a long gash on his right arm from shrapnel, blood streaming down his arm and staining his military uniform red. My heart instantly clenched into a knot. I rushed forward and held him up. "Quick, to the medical unit." I had never been so scared before. In the medical unit, I personally cleaned his wound, applied medicine, and bandaged it. My hands kept trembling, and tears welled up in my eyes, but I forced myself not to let them fall. He's my man. I can't show weakness in front of him. The wound was deep and required 7 stitches. From start to finish, Grey Lou didn't make a sound, not even a furrow of his brow. It was as if he wasn't the one injured. After the wound was treated, I helped him home. The whole way, he didn't say a word, only tightly holding my hand with his uninjured left one. When I got home, I had him lie down on the bed to rest. June, he suddenly spoke, his voice a bit hoarse. Were you really scared just now? I couldn't hold back any longer. Tears streamed down my face in an instant. I threw myself into his arms and sobbed uncontrollably. He clumsily patted my back with his left hand, repeating over and over, "It's okay. Don't be afraid. See, I'm fine." I cried for what felt like an eternity, finally releasing all the grievances, longing, and fear that had built up over those months of tears. When the tears finally subsided, I looked up at him with reddened eyes. "Grey Lou," I sniffled, "you're never allowed to do this again. I won't let anything happen to you." He looked at me, his obsidian-like eyes reflecting my tear-streaked face. Slowly, he lowered his head and gently kissed away the tears on my cheeks with his warm lips. Then, his kiss marked my lips. This kiss was unlike the usual fleeting ones. It carried a hint of blood and an unyielding dominance. Prying open my lips and conquering like a storm, my mind went blank, and I could only respond to him instinctively. That night, the quilt that had been separating us was finally removed. With his actions, he showed me that he needed me and wanted me. In our most intimate moment, I saw the crisscrossing scars on his back, each one like a silent medal, telling stories of the blood and sweat he had shed for this country. I melted into him, calling his name over and over, "Grey Lou, Grey Lou, my man." Early the next morning, Grey Lou still left. He got up before dawn, moving quietly so as not to wake me, but I was already awake. I lay in bed, pretending to be fast asleep. Listening to the sounds of him getting dressed and washing up, he walked to the bedside, placed a gentle kiss on my forehead, and then turned to leave. The moment the door closed, my tears silently fell. I knew that from then on, waiting would become a part of my life. After Grey Lou left, life returned to its usual calm, but my heart had gone with him. Every day, I would go to the sentry post at the barracks entrance, hoping to catch a glimpse of his familiar figure. The work at the medical team remained leisurely. However, the atmosphere in each battalion had grown somewhat tense due to this large-scale exercise. Several companies had gathered together, exchanging rumors they had heard from who knows where. Sister Zhong once again became an active participant in the conversation. "Have you heard? The opposing force in this exercise is said to be the elite unit known as the King of the Blue Army. The mental pressure on us is immense." "Absolutely. My husband Laro Lee said he hasn't slept properly for days." "Oh dear. Do you think Battalion Commander Liu will be as lucky as last time? I heard he offended the division commander. And now for this exercise, the division commander assigned him the toughest nut to crack." They chattered away incessantly, and their noise irritated me so much that I got up and left. As soon as I got home, I saw Deputy Battalion Commander Lee pacing anxiously back and forth at my doorstep. When he spotted me, he immediately rushed over. "Sister-in-law, you're finally back." "Deputy Battalion Commander Lee, is there something you need?" I was somewhat surprised. "Sister-in-law, please come take a look at my wife." Deputy Commander Lee was sweating profusely in his urgency. She heard from someone that our casualties in this drill were severe, and old Liu, Battalion Commander Liu, she got so worked up that it triggered labor pains. Now her stomach is hurting terribly. My heart skipped a beat. "Sister Zhong is pregnant. How come I didn't know?" Without another thought, I quickly grabbed my first aid kit and followed Deputy Battalion Commander Lee to his home. As soon as I entered the door, I saw Sister Zhong lying on the bed, her face pale and her forehead covered in cold sweat. I checked beforehand. "The situation is very bad. There are signs of premature labor. Quick, take her to the medical team." "No, there's no time. Send her directly to the Military General Hospital." I made a prompt decision. "The car, where's the car?" Deputy Battalion Commander Lee had already lost his composure. All the vehicles were moved away during the performance. A neighbor said, "What should we do? What on earth can we do?" Deputy Battalion Commander Lee was pacing anxiously, seeing him so distraught. I suddenly thought of Grey Lou. If Grey Lou were here, he definitely wouldn't be this panicked. He would calmly analyze the situation and then find a solution. I took a deep breath and forced myself to calm down. "Deputy Battalion Commander Lee, don't panic. Go find your company's messenger and have him immediately send a telegram to the Division Command Center to report the situation and request emergency medical support. Just say it's Grey Lou's order." In the military, communication discipline is ironclad, but with lives at stake, I couldn't afford to worry about that anymore. I believe Grey Lou would understand and support my decision if he knew. Everyone else, boil water, prepare clean towels. I began directing the team in an orderly manner. Under my command, what was once a chaotic scene gradually became more organized. Half an hour later, the ambulance landed on the playground of the camp. Sister Zhong was rushed to the Military District General Hospital, thanks to the timely treatment. Both mother and child were safe and sound. The incident quickly spread throughout the entire branch. The way people looked at me changed, from curiosity and scrutiny to admiration and trust. Even Sister Zhong, who had always disliked me, came to thank me with a basket of eggs after being discharged from the hospital. Her face flushed with embarrassment as she said, "Xiao Lin, sister-in-law, it was my fault before. Please don't take it to heart. This time, if it weren't for you, we mother and child." Sister-in-law, don't say that. I supported her. "We're both military families. Helping each other is what we should do. From now on, we're family." After Sister Zhong left, I gazed out the window, and my heart suddenly felt clear. I think I understand Grey Lou a little now. I understood why he chose to stay in this desolate Gobi despite having the option for a brighter future. Because here, there is the land he must protect, the comrades he must guard, and family like me who need his protection. As his wife, all I can do is take good care of our little home, so he can focus without worries, to be his pride, not his weakness. 2 weeks later, the military exercise came to an end. The day the troops returned in triumph, the entire camp was in a frenzy. People from all over flocked to the camp gates, eagerly looking into the distance. I was in the crowd, my heart pounded rapidly, and my eyes searched unblinkingly for that distant dirt road on the horizon. Finally, the military convoy appeared on the horizon. As the vehicles came to a halt, the soldiers jumped down one by one. They were all sunburned and covered in the dust of their campaign, yet their spirits were extraordinary, their eyes gleaming with the light of victory. I spotted Grey Lou in the crowd at once. He looked even more gaunt than before, with a stubble of dark beard on his chin and a somewhat weathered gaze. Yet he stood straight as a spear, the sharp aura around him more formidable than ever. He was searching for me too. When our eyes met across the distance, his usually stern face broke into a faint yet tender smile. He walked towards me. I ran towards him as well, under our master's gaze. I threw myself into his arms and hugged him tightly. "I'm back," he said in a hoarse voice by my ear. "Welcome home." I buried my face in his arms, which carried the scent of gunpowder. As tears streamed down uncontrollably, this time, the exercise was successfully completed. Grey Lou's battalion, serving as the main assault force, executed a decapitation operation with minimal losses, shattering the myth of the Blue Army King being invincible. Grey Lou himself was awarded a second-class merit for his decisive command and agile maneuvers during the exercise. All the previous rumors about him offending the division commander and having a bleak future became nothing but a joke. At the victory banquet, Division Commander Ching raised a toast to Grey Lou, patting him on the shoulder and laughing heartily. "Good lad, you didn't let me down. I knew I wasn't wrong about you." Grey Lou remained as composed and dignified as ever, simply raising his glass and draining it in one go. After the banquet, he was a bit drunk. I supported him as we slowly made our way home. The moonlight stretched our shadows long behind us. "June," he suddenly stopped in his tracks, turned around, and cupped my face in his hands. "You know what? When I was lying in ambush on the battlefield, cold and hungry, just the thought of you waiting for me at home gave me all the strength I needed." His eyes were strikingly bright under the moonlight, brimming with fervent affection. "I heard about what happened with Sister Jong. You handled it very well." He rubbed my cheek with his calloused fingertips. "My little wife has grown up and can stand on her own now, of course," I said with a hint of pride, tilting my chin up. "After all, look who my husband is." He chuckled lowly, his chest heaving with excitement, the laughter brimming with satisfaction and pride. He lowered his head and kissed me deeply. The kiss carried the strong scent of alcohol and the relief of having survived a near-death experience. We poured all our strength into it, as if trying to meld each other into our very bones and blood. Back home, he pinned me against the door, his scorching kisses trailing downward. "June, have a child with me." His voice was hoarse, filled with longing. "A daughter like you, or a son like me?" I didn't answer, only expressed my desire through action. That night, it was as if we had decided to make up for the half-month separation all at once. Outside the window, the Gobi Desert was bathed in moonlight like water. Inside the window, our affection is at its peak. I finally understood that marrying a soldier is not just marrying a man, but also a belief, a guardian, and I, willingly and gladly. The following spring, a faint layer of greenery unexpectedly appeared on the Gobi Desert. My belly, like this land, is nurturing new hope. When Captain Wang from the medical team smiled and congratulated me, saying Battalion Commander Lu is pregnant, I could hardly believe it. When I told Grey Lu the news, he was peeling an apple for me. Upon hearing my words, the fruit knife in his hand clattered to the ground. This man, who had remained unshaken even when Mount Tai collapsed before him during the military exercise, now stared at me like a dazed fool, unable to react for the longest time. What did you say?" he stammered. I said, "You're going to be a dad," I repeated with a smile. He suddenly stood up, paced around the room several times, then rushed back to me, knelt down, and carefully pressed his ear against my belly. I can't hear anything," he asked, looking puzzled. I burst into laughter at his silly expression. "It's only been 2 months. What could you possibly hear?" Only then did he realize and chuckled along foolishly. That smile of his was as bright as a child's. From that day on, I became the top priority in the household. Grey Lu wouldn't let me do any housework anymore, taking charge of all the daily meals himself. He even went to consult team leader Wang from the health unit, learning several nutritious dishes suitable for pregnant women. The medical team wouldn't let me leave either. Under the pretext of allowing me to rest peacefully during my pregnancy, I became the most idle military wife in the entire compound. Every day, my tasks were to eat, sleep, take walks, and receive Grey Lu's meticulous care. I felt like he was turning me into a pig. In autumn, I gave birth to a son, weighing 7 pounds and 6 ounces, very healthy, who cried so loudly it could lift the roof. Grey Lu named him Luan, with an meaning peace. He said he didn't expect his son to achieve great things in the future, only wishing him a lifetime of peace and smooth sailing. The birth of our son brought endless joy to our little family. Grey Lu, the new dad, is doing a remarkable job, changing diapers, feeding, lulling the baby to sleep. He's mastered it all. Watching the once formidable battalion commander, who used to dominate the training field, now clumsily cradling a tiny baby and humming an off-key lullaby, I couldn't help but laugh. Days passed by, one after another, in these ordinary yet blissful little moments. A year later, news of KGU drifted into my life like an insignificant fallen leaf. It was Sister Jong who told me. She said KGU didn't get the position of deputy director at the store, and Fei Wang completely cut ties with him after he slapped her. Later, he somehow offended someone else and was fired from the factory, slinking back to the countryside in disgrace. After listening, there wasn't a ripple in my heart. That man who once made me love and also made me suffer is now, to me, nothing more than a vague pronoun. My world was soon filled by another man. Another dusk arrived. Luan, who had already learned to walk, stood at the doorstep, waiting for the man I deeply loved to come home. In the distance, the last rays of the setting sun bathed the Gobi Desert in a golden glow. Grey Lu's figure appeared right on time at the intersection. "Dad!" Luan broke free from my embrace and toddled toward him on his little legs, swaying unsteadily. Grey Lou quickly walked over with a slight limp, bent down to pick up his son in his arms, and planted a kiss on his chubby little face. Then, he melted his son with affection and strode towards me. He came up to me, freed one hand, and pulled me into his embrace. I'm back, welcome home. The three of us, bathed in the afterglow of the setting sun, cast long shadows, warm and happy. I looked up at Grey Lou's resolute profile, at the faint scar on his brow, feeling a deep sense of peace. I am so grateful that day in the state-run restaurant. I mustered the greatest courage of my life to ask, "Comrade, are you in need of a wife?" That absurd beginning led to the most perfect ending of my life.